Sound speeds, and as promised, here is your behind-the-scenes look at the making of the Neptech BC-1 Bluetooth cable. Well, let's start at the beginning. How did I come up with this idea? Well, first of all, I was trying to think about what I wanted to do as a prank because this is the first year I have done sound speeds over an April Fool's Day. Now, in the past, I've done other April Fool's pranks on other mediums. Like I usually pick some sound forums and do them that way. I did a lightsaber boom one year. A couple of years ago, I did a finder for boom operators that kind of matches the camera finder that people use, like DPs. But this year, I wanted to do something for the channel. Now, you guys don't know me to be a pranker, but believe it or not, I am in the real world. But I wanted to come up with something that seemed believable enough because the world is full of very skeptical people, especially on April Fool's Day. And I wanted there to be some people out there that would question whether or not it was a real thing or not. So it had to be based somewhat in reality, but somewhat of a stretch. That way, there was a little bit of hope there that gave you an impression that there could be a real thing that was developed, and you just kind of had to suspend the disbelief and maybe even trust me on this. And hopefully it worked. So let's get into it from the beginning. I came up with a list of a bunch of features I wanted the Neptech, or whatever, I hadn't named it at the time, whatever I wanted it to be. I came up with a list of features that I wanted it to basically, I guess you could say, have. But I also needed to think about it from the point of view of what would be believable. I couldn't, of course, say this was going to be a transmitter and work in the same way that your regular transmitters do from Electrosonics or Zapscom, WizzyCom, those kind of companies, because it would be too small and therefore it would not be believable. It needed to be bigger than that. But what could be small enough to fit in there and be easy enough on battery to still contain it in that little tiny source? So I thought Bluetooth might be okay. Short-term stuff, Bluetooth might be realistic as a short-range thing. But it cannot be it can't have too much to it. I mean, it can't have too much range. It can't blow the minds off of people that, that know Bluetooth. And therefore, it can't be like this wonderful thing that now gives you a quarter of a mile range. So I started to think about what to do to stretch the tech. Well, first of all, the reason why Bluetooth does not work is because of the latency. It is about a quarter of a second latency. So I decided to state that it was Bluetooth like technology, and they figured out a way to make it have zero latency. Well, first of all, zero latency in the world of wireless does not exist. Even in the professional transmitter world, you're still talking about 1 or 2 milliseconds. That's not going to be ever beaten. Well, I shouldn't say ever. I mean, we get better and better in technology every single day, but that's not going to be beaten by Bluetooth anytime soon. And the idea of it being zero latency, well, you're basically talking about a cabled system if it's zero latency. It has to I mean, even then, there's still the tiniest little bit that if you can measure it, there's going to be a tad bit of latency just as it travels through the cable. But that's not really going to be anything that you're going to even notice. I mean, it's not going to be something that you can even measure, in all honesty, as a layperson. So after coming up with features, I had to come up with a name. And I figured that if it was an American company, it'd be too easy to look up because, you have to register names for companies, business licenses, all that kind of stuff is very easy to look up. Plus, it would entail getting an FCC ID, and a lot of that stuff is that pertains to those kind of companies are public information, and I would not want that to be too easy to look up. So I decided to make it an international company, and I decided on a Dutch company because I'm really looking forward to the new TV show called Cobra Kai that's coming up, which I'm a big Karate Kid fan, and of course, in the original Karate Kid, there was a guy named Dutch, and of course, so I was thinking, well, Dutch makes sense. And I figured it would be a little bit easier to hide it as a company if I were to say that it was a small company based out of another country. It'd be a little more difficult to look up because most people cannot look up things in another country to save their lives. And I figured, well, I have a better chance of getting away with it. Then if I made it a small company that was going to be showcasing it in America, then what would be great for that? Well, NAB is next week. So I figured I might as well do it at NAB. Now, the problem with NAB is you get booths at NAB and you can look it up on their website. So I said, I can't exactly do that because people would be typing in Neptech and finding out that there is no such thing. So I decided to make them share a booth with somebody. And then I was like, well, geez, how do I do that then? If, because it would say Neptech and somebody else. Well, I don't have the details yet. That's the best thing I could come up with is I don't have the details yet because it was sent to me on Friday and I only have a couple of days to turn this thing around to get it out in time. So being that I have a short turnaround, I'll get the information on Monday, and that's when I was planning on coming clean, because that was be April 2nd. And of course, by then, April Fool's Day was gone, and I planned on coming clean. So I figured if I could get you guys to come back on the day after April Fool's to at least look for the information, then I have a better chance of, you know, presenting it and letting you know that this was actually a fake product. Because I do not want someone to go out there in the world and say, yes, I'm really looking for this product here, and suddenly it's like 6 months later, it doesn't exist. Are you kidding me? I did not want that to happen. I wanted you guys to know that this was a fake product shortly after April Fool's Day. So, so of course I was in a little bit of a bind here, and thinking about it, I said, well, they're ahead of us a few time zones. So if I said the package arrived to me Friday afternoon and they're a Dutch company, I can't get them on the phone to ask them additional questions, and they weren't answering emails. So maybe I could just say that I'll get more information on Monday. There you have it. That's how I came up with it. Now I had to think of the actual product itself and what I wanted it to be like. Well, I thought that if I made it a finished product, first of all, it would have to go through FCC licensing. It would have to have an American company name. There would have to be something about it that you guys could look up. And the ways to avoid that would be to not have a brand, not have a logo or anything really, and not even show you the finished product. So you can't even look it up that way. So I decided to come up with the idea of making it a prototype and saying that this is the last working prototype, and that way I could also discuss some differences between this and the actual thing. Now, I could have done a 3D printing. I even thought about it, but I decided against that because I didn't want it to look like it could be a finished product, because then it would be like, you would expect to see extra words on there that would have to do with the wireless tech itself. Maybe a license number or a patent number or something here in America. It could not just have the branding on it. And then I figured, well, geez, I've already said it's indestructible plastic, and then you'd probably want to see the tech on the inside. There'd be too much about that. The best thing I could do is to say it was sealed and you can't get into it. But of course, that is a fake thing right there. You can get into it. As a matter of fact, I recorded the process of me making the BC-1 from the very beginning. It started with me going on Amazon and looking up XLR connectors. I didn't want them to be Neutrik or Switchcraft, anything you'd recognize. I wanted them to look different than those. So I decided to go for the cheapest possible company that could sell XLR connectors. I figured none of you guys would ever get that. That way they would look close enough to an XLR connector on camera, but be far enough away from a product that you would actually recognize that maybe I could get away with it. The next thing I wanted to do to add a nice little touch was to create an LED light effect. So that way you would know that the device was on. And the best way I could think of would be to take an LED light and put a hearing aid battery on it. But then I said, no, that's too easy. Let me come up with another system that maybe I could finagle in such a way to make it turn on for the video. And I found, after doing a couple of searches, these inside a balloon LED lights, I guess, for a lack of a better way. You put these on the inside of a balloon that you put helium in, and it creates a light effect on the inside of the balloon. And I figured that was perfect. But then when it arrived, it was actually a little bit big for the XLR connector. So I had to gut the XLR connector out and then put it on the inside. And when I put it inside, I twisted the little knob a little bit, and it flickered on and off a little bit unless it was completely on. And then I said, well, geez, this is perfect. Now I just need to time everything and make it work just right, so that way when I press the button, it would actually go on. That took quite a few takes to get right, because I could get it to stay off, I could get it to stay on, but getting it where it was just in the sweet spot where it would either turn on or off. Sometimes it turned on in the middle of my presentation. Sometimes it didn't turn on at all. Sometimes it would be on the whole time and I couldn't get the thing to turn off. I basically had to do multiple takes until I got one take of the exact thing I wanted, which was the light off and then the light on when I pressed the quote unquote button. And after a few takes, I did manage to get that. To turn it on, all you need to do is press the button on the end. To turn it on, all you do is press the end, and the battery will come. To turn it on, all you do is you press the end and then you release. To turn it on, all you need to do is press the end, and to turn it on, all you need to do is press the end. To turn it on, all you do is you press the end, and after a moment, the light will come on. To turn it on, all you do is you press the end and the light will come on. To turn it on, all you do is you press the end. To turn it on, all you do is you press the end of it and the battery will automatically. To turn it on, all you do is you press the end and it will automatically power itself on. To turn it on, all you do is you press the end and the battery will turn on. To turn it on, all you do is you press the end and the battery light will come on. To turn it on, all you do is you press the end and it will automatically. To turn it on, all you need to do is press the end and a little light will come on to indicate that it's turned on. To turn it on, all you do is you press the end and a light will come on to indicate that To turn it on, all you do is you press the end and a little light will come on to indicate that it's on. To turn it on, all you do is you press the end and a battery. To turn it on, all you do is you press the end and the light will come on. To turn it on, all you do is you press the end and a light will come on to indicate that it's actually on. I believe it worked. Of course, I knew that if I did not show it in action, I had a 0 chance of you actually believing this was a legit product. I mean, I'm already not showing you the inside of it because I said it was sealed. You don't see any kind of branding or anything because I covered it with a little piece of white tape and called it some sort of a testing prototype code. So I had to actually show the thing work. Now, yes, I could have recorded it with a second microphone and then ADR'd the whole thing. But I decided against that. I decided to show it working live. Now, how did I do that? I decided I was going to have to solder cables into the XLR connector to actually be able to record it. That was going to give me the very best results that would make it believable to all the sharp-eared viewers that I have. Now, the best thing I could think of would be to come up with a cable that may not be ideal in fidelity, but maybe would fool you. So the best thing I could come up with there was a plain old telephone cable. Now, the problem was that I only had one of them and it was only one pair. So I decided to use a Cat5 connector instead. I pulled apart a Cat5 connector. I decided to basically strip 3 of the 8 little cables on the inside of it and then pull a link out that was maybe about 18 inches. And from there, I was able to solder them to the connectors. Well, I should say it was my goal to solder them, but the connector ended up being so cheap. It was like borderline plastic. It was so flimsy and it wiggled on the inside of the actual connector itself. And from the reports online, even by professionals trying to use these, they said that if you put too much heat on it for too long, even for a couple of seconds, it had a chance of completely melting these little XLR connectors. But luckily, it happened to have a little bitty loop, so I was able to loop it through there and then solder it there. So that way I had no chance of it not working due to bad soldering. Now, I'm actually really good at soldering, but I didn't want to chance it on this, and nor did I really want to waste a whole lot of time on it. So I just looped it through there, soldered it so that way it would stay connected, and then decided to solder a hole in the side of the XLR connector. Once I put it together, that way it would come out the exact place I wanted it to. So it's now soldered and ready to go. Well, kind of. I mean, I still had to put the LED light on the end of it. And the only way I could do that and make it actually work is by ripping out all of the plastic on the inside of it. Now, of course, that meant that it was very easy to come in and out. That presented a bit of a problem because there's a little bit of torquing that has to happen when you take it in and out of a microphone. I mean, as a matter of fact, in order to make this part not recess every single time you press it in and out of a microphone, which would be a dead giveaway, I had to basically have a little bit of the plastic on the inside of it to bulk it up. But by pressing in and out, it actually kept pressing this little thing off of the cable, which meant that I had to cut and restart again. It took me multiple takes to actually get it right. You've seen me wear multiple shirts on this channel, and some of them have long sleeves. So I decided to roll up one of the long sleeve ones to just under my elbow. Normally, that's a pretty appropriate length for me, and you guys have seen me wear that length many times. But I decided that if this was going to be cabled, I had to run the cable on the inside of my shirt and hide it from you guys. The best way for that to happen would be if I ran it up and over one of my shoulders and down the other side. Then, of course, this had to go inside. But how do I keep it to my skin? Well, there's a very good little product that we use here in the film industry called Super Stick. It's extremely very sticky 2-sided tape. As a matter of fact, it was borderline too sticky for me. I got to use all this Super Stick to get it to stick to my arm, so that way it's hidden from the camera. Once I remove this sticky, I got to make sure that this cable sticks down to my arm, so that way you don't see it. Now I have this thing completely stuck down to my arm. Hopefully you guys don't see this connector hanging out there. If you're not looking for it, chances are you won't, just like our lav mics. So I got the cable to actually stick to my arm, which was great. And if you noticed at the very beginning, I had my hands completely open and I just had the cable stuck to the back side of my arm, right where you could not see it. But I did multiple takes because it did show up in some of the takes. I'm actually hearing this. That's pretty cool. So we can see that this is actually working. I don't know how this is working, but it is. It's pretty awesome. So let's try this. Are we getting any kind of a level out of it? Testing right there. All right, here goes nothing. We're going to plug up the male into the Mix Pre 6. There you go. Fascinating, really. I mean, it's actually working. Okay, here goes nothing. We're going to plug up the male into the Mix Pre 6. Okay, right there. And how is plug up a right over here, the Beta 58. So here's the Beta 58. So I mean, this here is working. It's working in full effect, and hopefully you like the way this thing sounds. Plugging up a condenser. On the fly, I figured out that I was able to hold it and just kind of lean it against my hand in such a way where you would never see the cable and you would still think it existed as a wireless device. Now, the funny thing is, if you watch my eyes throughout this video process, there were times where I would look down and look right at the cable to make sure that it was hidden from sight, but I kept making it look like I was looking at the connector, and of course, I was legitimately looking at my computer, which is right down there, which was on during the thing, because I wanted to make sure that I could see the visual of that. Now, of course, my Mix Pre 6 is down there too, so I acted like I was watching the levels, and it was sure hot, like I said it was. So when I said it was zero latency, it was zero latency because it was coming off of a cable. Okay, after multiple takes, we finally got it. So I am going to undo this from around my neck now so we can finish this thing up. All right, now this is going to be the fun part, because all of this, I think for the most part, oh, this feels wonderful. Oh yeah. Oh yeah, let's go. Come on, get on there. Get on there. Get off it. Ow. Ow. Okay. Okay, this has to be documented too. When I pulled off the tape, I had this faint, very, very like red line from where I peeled off some of the skin, top layer of skin, and part of it is red and borderline bleeding, which is going to be just awesome if you see that. So this flimsy little thing that came from me buying the cheapest connectors on Amazon actually turned into a pretty good, if I do say so myself, April Fool's prank. So I hope you actually learned a little bit from watching this behind the scenes and had a little bit of fun with this as well. So thank you for watching. Tune into more episodes of Sound Speeds where we do real sound stuff, have fun, and of course there's more sound advice. Have a question you'd like answered or want to add something? Be sure to write it in the comment section down below. You can also make a suggestion for future topics of discussion. Again, comment section down below, or you can email me at soundspeeds@yahoo.com. Be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss out on future sound advice.